Hey everyone, Chris here from Gambill Data. Welcome back to another round of Gambill's Gauntlet, where we sharpen your skills with real data engineering challenges and give you those solutions. This week's theme, orchestration and security, because great pipelines aren't just fast, they are reliable and secure. But before we dive into last week's answers, I have 3 new challenges for you to solve. Think them through, comment your solutions below, and you might just get featured in next week's video. Alright, challenge number 1 is all about scheduling logic. You are designing a daily pipeline that pulls data from 5 different systems. Each system completes at a different time, but how do you orchestrate that job to avoid failures from late data? Challenge number 2 is about secret management. Your team currently hardcodes API keys in pipelines. What is a secure alternative, and how would you implement that in a platform like ADF, Synapse, or Airflow? Alright, this final challenge for this week is all about failure alerts and recovery. A nightly job silently fails due to schema drift. What alerting and rollback strategy would you put in place to catch and recover from this? Before I walk through last week's solutions, I want to spotlight a great response from Zaffer in the comments. Now, he pointed out that partitioning by sales date might result in some bucketing behaviors depending on the platform, and that it might be more effective to partition by month and region. That is a solid observation, Zaffer. Partition strategy really depends on how your engine handles that partitioning versus bucketing, whether it's Hive, Snowflake, or BigQuery. Let me walk you through how I would handle that same scenario and where I might take it further. Alright, we're going to jump into last week's scenarios. First challenge was, how do you optimize a 200 million row aggregation to run in under 3 minutes? Number 1, partitioning by month. Partition by the sales table on the sales date by month, giving you 1/12 the scan range per query. Next, composite clustering and indexing. Use the sales date, region, and product ID as a composite cluster key to streamline both filtering and grouping. Finally, use materialized views. So you're creating a pre-aggregated view, something that looks a little bit like this. Now 4, you could also throw in some query optimization by ensuring that the where clause filters on your sales date are appropriately set up to trigger partition pruning. Now let's tackle the product category model with hierarchy, many-to-many links, and history. So here are the solutions that you should implement. 1, SCD Type 2 category table with some surrogate keys and a parent surrogate key for hierarchy. 2, a product table, keyed by product ID. 3, a bridge table. 4, here is your querying strategy. For your history, join on the assigned date, between, an effective date, and a from date, and a to date. And then you have a current filter, so you have a is current field in your table where it equals true. For your performance, you would add an index on the category ID and the is current flag, and you partition the table by year. Finally, how do you catch bad files before they even hit your pipeline? Here's a quick story. One client had a schema drift go undetected for 2 days. Nobody realized that finance was reporting on partial data until the CFO called, and it was avoidable. Now here is how you could avoid that situation in your own job. Pre-ingestion schema validation. Failing files go to a quarantine folder and log to a file audit location. 2. Automated alerting. Trigger Teams or email alert or text alerts for quarantine statuses. Remediation interface that you could tie to Streamlit or some other UI tool to download, fix, and then re-upload and mark as fixed. Finally, you have a couple more steps. You have your post-load data quality testing, where you're running DBT and Python checks for range, nulls, row counts, things like that. Things that we covered in our Data Engineering 101 video last week for that lesson. Monitoring dashboards in Power BI. Things like quarantine count, trends, error history over time. Something that you could monitor and predict alerting. There you go, 3 production grade answers that you could use in your interviews or at your job now. And a big shout out again to Zaffer for last week's insight. Love seeing that kind of sharp thinking in the comments. Now it's your turn. Which of this week's questions are you most excited to answer? Drop your thoughts below and tag them with answer for Q1, Q2, or Q3. If this helped you think more clearly about orchestration and security, be sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone that's preparing for their own interviews or building pipelines. Until next time, keep your pipelines clean and your queries lean.